All right, go ahead. Your dog loves cold, Jen.
Yeah, she's obsessed with it. It was 9 degrees this morning. And she was zipping around like a little psychopath. And then I was trying to sleep. And she busted in our bedroom door and was just flying around. Like, she's not usually this energetic, but there's just something about the cold. She loves it. She's a psycho.
Maybe Wallace is Heaton's child.
Maybe we need to switch dogs, because I think 65 is cold. So I'm right there with Wallace.
No, so I keep the house at 60 at night, but I'm under the covers. Also, he has a built-in coat, quad dog, and 65 during the day. You know, if I get nippy, maybe I'll turn on a space heater for 5 minutes or something like that, but not a whole lot. We're in peacetime. But he'll wander up and just start shivering in 65 degrees. So he's wearing a coat inside the house right now. But if we go outside where it's 20, he's totally fine. It's like he's got wolf mode and toddler mode.
Yeah, maybe he's just spoiled.
Yeah,
I think he's very spoiled. Yes.
Speaking of spoiled, I'll show you guys this on the.
Wait. Here's how spoiled he is, Jen. I've made a little closet spot for him. So I've got my closet in my bedroom. You know, where you keep clothes, things like that. You know, a closet. And I put in a dog bed at the bottom, so Wallace would have like his own space. And then I had a framed picture of Laika, the space dog, made for him, as well as Airbud. So he's got his own dog themed decorations down at the bottom of the closet. So he's spoiled.
Oh my God. Well, we bought a love sack for ourselves because Joe and I are perpetually college students.
I don't want to know about your love sack. Can we just talk about your dogs, please? Jesus.
Have you never heard of a love sack?
No, I went to public schools in Oklahoma.
It's a little old place where we can get together.
It's a giant beanbag. And so we bought it for ourselves for our couch, but instead this teeny tiny creature
just colonized it.
Yep, look at that. It's like the biggest dog bed for the smallest dog. And we don't use it anymore. It is now officially hers. And she's just there all day, every day. Speaking of spoiled.
Jen, health update. How are you feeling?
Dude, the sinus infection just kicked my ass. After 4 days of not getting any better, I did a doctor's appointment. So they think it was a bacterial infection. So I'm on antibiotics now. It's getting better, but you can hear like I'm still not fine.
Yeah.
I'll be up for a few hours, then I'll have to take a nap, and it's just been nasty. I haven't been sick like this since COVID, honestly. So.
Jen, I told this to what's his name, Justin, before you came on. I went and did a doctor's appointment today. I weigh 160 pounds. That means I've lost 12 pounds since last year. And that kind of freaked me out. I insisted they put me on a second scale because I didn't believe it at first.
Are you still not eating meat?
Nope. Do you think it's that? Could it be me not eating meat?
Can you need muscle and you need protein. And I'm guessing like eating like a bird is not helping with this thing.
I eat a fair amount. I feel bloated right now. I ate a whole lot of quinoa. Where I came on. And this stuff called kefir, which is like a prebiotic yogurt. And a couple of protein shakes. So it's not like, but maybe that's it. I hadn't thought about that. I thought maybe it was the year of not drinking booze, but maybe like 3 pounds was the booze and 8 pounds is the meat.
Are you lifting weights at all? I know we've had this conversation so many times.
I did yesterday. I've resumed
do you even
going
lift,
to the gym.
bro?
No, yesterday doesn't count. Like, do you do it
so
regularly?
Muscle atrophy too. No, not since the summer.
Yeah.
I was doing push-ups for a bit. I got up to 53, my all-time high.
Like in general, like you added everything up to 53?
No, I could do 53 in one
in a row.
Go. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. I don't believe that.
No, I did this. You know, Brian Brushwood, he has this thing called the crazy Russian fitness regime or something like that. And
crazy Russian push-ups.
That's it. And I did that. So you do you figure out what your fatigue amount is. I don't remember what it was. Let's say it was 30. And then you do like the first day you do 15 4 times, but stuff like that, right? So you're kind of alternating. You're not trying to go to exhaustion, but you're doing a lot. By the end, you bump it up. By the end, I 53 was the maximum amount I could do in one go.
Are you doing any like leg lifting? Because there's other muscles.
No, I've not been going to the gym. I'm sure. I think you've solved it. It's probably muscle atrophy and lack of meat. Is that it? Is that what we decided?
Yeah, I feel like protein.
Well, probably muscle. Muscle is the real key there, right? You know, because that weighs more than fat, and certainly more than the water weight that usually is brought on by alcohol.
Okay. All right. Okay. So lots of protein shakes and those leg lift things that Jen talked about. That's
For the
order
record,
today.
I am drinking less than I have in my adult life, and I am fatter than ever. For whatever reason, I have.
Yeah. You get dad bod. That's the law.
I realize this. That the most in shape, the only time that I've ever had like visible abs was during the pandemic. And it was when I was totally in a closed loop on my diet. But one of the things that I had promised myself was that I would not quit drinking because I wanted to keep drinking. And so I realized that I was just drinking. I was just basically using IPAs as like measured out calorie protein shakes or just like Slim Fast. I used IPAs like Slim Fast where I wouldn't eat munchies afterward, but I would drink while I was walking every night. I would start drinking around like 3 o'clock in the afternoon and I would wrap it up by like 8. I'd get like 10 hours of sleep and then wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning and start running. And it was by far the most, by the metrics, healthy that I have ever been. And now I am not eating, or I'm not drinking in anywhere near the amounts that I did before, which was likely unhealthy. But now I was snacking so much that I've had to like radically cut back my diet so I can kind of reverse the arrows and start, losing weight a little bit.
Yeah, I see on these like TikToks where people will be like, if you quit drinking, it'll help you lose weight. I gained 10 pounds when I quit drinking because I just leaned into the sugar. So instead of getting a beer, I was getting hot chocolates and it was fine. That's kind of what I needed for those first 6 months, but I've had to like actively work to get my quitting drinking pounds off. So yeah, losing weight is not a guarantee when you kick the booze.
Well, except for Heaton, who apparently
I suggest you do 53 push-ups
weight
and quit
like he
eating
has
meat.
Ebola.
Yeah, but he started drinking again. So I think it's the shedding the food that has caused him to lose weight. Cause like quinoa, I'm supposed to be the liberal on the show and he's over there eating quinoa.
Yeah. But like, hold on, I have like I eat eggs. I have like I make scrambled eggs every morning. Like I eat a lot. It's not like I have like a caloric restriction. And I think I'm being pretty healthy in terms of concise. It's not like I'm eating Doritos and stuff.
So you won't eat a chicken, but you'll eat their abortions.
Damn.
Yes, that's right. Yeah. But I get pasture raised ones, right? Because it's not trafe. It's not that it's unholy. It's just I don't want to add to misery. So if I can find something that was raised ethically, then it's fine.
You think way too much.
I know.
That's your problem.
I don't like this. One of the reasons I've started drinking again. It's my fucking brain. So
I need to shut this
overclocked.
thing off every once in a while. Jeez Louise.
Jesus. The doctor's ordering 50 cc's of scotch. Shut the fuck up, brain.
From Austin, Texas, I'm Justin Robert Young. From her quarantine tower in Austin, Texas.
I'm Jen Brining.
And from Washington, D.C.,
I'm Andrew Heaton.
And we're not wrong on this edition of the program. We will be discussing whether or not Eric Adams should be removed as the New York City mayor and why, of all things, Saturday Night Live, who just celebrated its 50th anniversary, is still relevant. All that plus your emails. Heaton, we mentioned before that it was cold down here. How is the weather in DC? Did you guys get snow?
It's been pretty bracing, if I can speak rudely. It's been rather, I want to say it's like 20 degrees outside right now. And it was a couple of days ago, we got a massive gale of wind. Like I had to walk at like a 45-degree angle. So it's been pretty chilly, and we've definitely have
especially
had
now that you're that you don't have that weight on you anymore. You could just blow off into the Potomac.
You're
fell
like a
through
giant
bicycle
sail.
grate the other day, just slid right in, just nothing but clowns down there from it. It was horrible.
You're gonna catch the wrong breeze and end up in Maryland.
Yeah, God, wow, won't be able to drive back if I end up in that wretched state. It took me very little time to develop a real hatred for Maryland drivers.
Oh, really? Is that a thing? Do people hate like the plots of land that are 5 feet away from each other?
Yeah, it is. And it's probably unjustified. It's probably completely anecdotal bullshit. But on the way back to Oklahoma/Texas for Christmas/New Year's, I drove like 30 feet outside of Virginia and then immediately hit a 2-hour pileup in Maryland. It's like, welcome to Virginia. Let's celebrate by driving into a pole. Bam. Like it was just that like immediately. And I was so pissed off about it that I like said multiple undying Norse curses towards Maryland. And it probably was just some random thing. Maybe the people were from Delaware. I don't know. But it pissed me off. I left several rants on to people via phone.
DC traffic. When I was a younger lad driving from Florida to Syracuse, there were only 2 cities that I would adjust my schedule to avoid hitting traffic in. One was Jacksonville, which weirdly has bizarre like hour and a half long traffic jams. And the other was DC. DC was like the only place where like you could just, if you hit it at the wrong time,
DC traffic's fucking terrible. Like, thank God I live near a metro stop. It is off. Like, the city is not designed to traffic people. It's designed to thwart invading British troops. Yeah. So there's all these weird fucking roundabout things. And you're thinking, oh, I like roundabouts. I studied abroad in Germany. Here's the deal, Jen. The roundabouts here aren't proper European roundabouts. They weren't actually put there to convey traffic. They were literally cannon spots. They were big cannon things that could go 360 so they could shoot a cannon at the British. And when we went, we're probably not going to fight the British again, we got rid of them. So we just have these random traffic circles that serve no purpose other than now you get to circumambulate around some old dead racist guy on a statue. That's it. That's the whole point now. You got to circle the statue for a bit. But it's a real fuck cluster. And I, for one, think we should give these people more money and power. DC is so well run, we should give them more money and power.
Well, you know what'll definitely solve this issue is recalling all of the federal workforce to the office. That's going to make things much better.
Apparently that was the big thing that was different during the last 2 years is that at least traffic in and out of DC from some of the commuter towns was far lessened than it was before. But I guess the bad old days are back if everybody's going to be working in town.
It's also like I've just a couple of interactions I've had where like I'm like maybe second person in a line, and then the light turns green and there's like half a second where the person ahead of me hasn't realized it yet. They're not even on their phone, just half a second. And the guy behind me will start ferociously honking, and I will roll down the window and go, "You're not that important," because everybody thinks they're important. Ugh.
This all happens in like a split second.
Yep. I'm that fast.
Can you give me an impression of what a ferocious horn honk would be as opposed to a normal horn honk?
This is different than a bleep. A beep is beep. Hey, the thing is beep. There's a difference. There's a difference between an angry honk and a beep.
None of this happens on the metro.
Jen, you'll be happy to know I take the metro most of the time. I'm not opposed to the metro. I like the metro.
I love the metro in DC. It's actually clean.
You know what? I do too. I like the metro in DC. It is like a kindergarten version of the New York subway system. Like it's coherent. It's much more simple. It's much smaller. There's a lot less vomit. Fewer stabbings. It's just like New York. They should call the subway the people tube. They should call it a people tube. But the metro in DC is quite nice. I like it.
I like it. Some of the escalators
I look forward to
never
being
long.
on it.
I know you're such a snob, Justin. You're not a part of this conversation.
I hope I never get to, because I've evolved, like a human, should have autonomy.
You like setting money on fire by taking Ubers and then getting drunk and insulting the Uber drivers so that
I have never insulted an Uber driver ever in my life.
He refused to pick us up again. That was
how
real.
Do you know that's because of me?
Because it was 100% because of you.
Most relevant factor.
No, I refuse to be slandered like this. This is absolutely out of pocket slander. I have utmost respect for the gig worker who takes me hither and yon.
Yeah, except for when you're telling said gig worker that his job's going to be irrelevant and taken over by robots, and
I was
telling him it's a good
that.
thing.
I was telling you that I was excited to use Waymo, which, by the way, I now have access to in Austin.
Then when we brought this up and we're like, Justin, like you might offend our driver. And you're like, listen, I got nothing against the driver or whatever country that believes in magic he crawled out of. I just think robot cars are the way of the future. There was a touch of irritation there.
Yeah.
All
and if
right.
we had this
All
conversation on the metro, there would have been no repercussions whatsoever.
No,
and it would
just
have been a quarter of the cost.
Good. Get on your little poor conveyance and I'll meet you there in my Uber. Sorry.
Bye.
I like to support workers. I like to support people who are paying their, trying to make a living in this country.
You just said
robbing
that
them.
you are now eligible for Waymo.
Yeah.
Are we counting
'Cause
the
I don't know.
robots as
I
the
like
workers
robots.
now?
Well, they can't. Their zone doesn't extend to my house, so I haven't used it yet.
Dude,
I'll be using an Uber to and from the bar tonight. In fact,
Great.
that's my commitment, my pledge.
the thing is, you
I,
have to
being
do it
politically
here. Like, I can't
bisexual,
give
like
you
both
shit
the
here
metro
in
and
Austin
cars.
because here in Austin, if you take the bus, it might just not show up, which happened to me routinely living in your neighborhood. But in DC, you have no excuse. Public
No, the
transportation
bus
there is
also
great.
doesn't show up, but the metro's pretty good.
The metro's great.
Yeah, I don't need an excuse.
I don't
have
trust
a reason.
buses, though,
I
'cause
don't
buses
like
don't show
public
up.
transportation.
The amount of times that I've stood at a bus stop like a moron for 30 minutes and then like somebody comes by and they're like, oh, it's St. Crispin's Day. And you're like, oh, of course,
Yeah.
it's St. Crispin's Day. Whereas the metro, it's harder to hide. Like, but I don't know where the bus drivers fucking hide. Like they go into a bridge or something and smoke cigarettes. But with metros, at least you know it's on the track. It's I don't know, it's just more honest. It's more trustworthy.
I walk by bus stops all the time when I walk through Austin. Never a smile. I don't see anybody smiling. I'll drive by somebody in a car and they might be jamming out to a little tune. They got a grin as broad as their face.
The Austin public transportation system is not the best, I will say.
Case closed. Point Justin.
Okay.
Let's talk about somebody who may or may not be in his position in a few weeks. And
Speaking of
possibly
no
done-
smiles.
Yeah, possibly done by the time that you listen to this show. New York Governor Kathy Hochul is currently deliberating the potential removal of New York City Mayor Eric Adams from office. The consideration arises amidst a series of controversies surrounding Mayor Adams, including allegations of corruption and his administration's stability. Recently, the U.S. Department of Justice dropped federal bribery charges against Mayor Adams, a move that led to significant resignations both within the Justice Department and Adams' own City Hall. Notably, 4 deputy mayors have stepped down, citing concerns over the administration's directions. These developments have intensified discussions of Mayor Adams' capacity to govern effectively. Governor Hochul has engaged in consultations with prominent political figures, including U.S. House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries and City Council Speaker Adrian Adams, to assess the situation. While the governor possesses the authority to remove a city mayor, such an action would be unprecedented in New York's history. The decision-making process involves careful consideration of legal procedures and potential political ramifications. Mr. Andrew Heaton. Actually, no, I'll go to Jen first on this one. Should Eric Adams be removed?
So I didn't know what Eric Adams did. And so I kind of felt like this entire conversation was coming out of the fact that there's some kind of like deal with the Trump administration where if Eric Adams were to help with Trump's deportation plans, and he would get his charges dropped. And so I wanted to go down the rabbit hole of like, what are the charges? Did he do anything that would hurt the American people? And so I read the indictment, and yes, this guy deserves to be thrown out on his ass because he actually put American lives in danger because he was acting as a foreign agent. It had like some Bob Menendez vibes, just wasn't as fun. Like there was no wife with tits so big that they called her Bubbles. There was no gold bars, but he was acting as a foreign agent for Turkey. And so the
America's
unforgivable
greatest
part
nemesis.
for me is that he took money and vacations from government officials and businessmen in Turkey in return for pressuring the fire department to allow a new Turkish consular building. It's a 36-story skyscraper to open without a fire safety inspection, which the fire, if you look at the emails, it would have failed at the time. This was not a safe building. But what Mayor Adams did, he wasn't the mayor at the time. He was a few months out from becoming mayor. But in the position that he had at the time as a government official, he basically told the fire department official who was responsible for that fire safety inspection that he was going to lose his job if he didn't pass the building. And so they did pass the building, and this unsafe building opened. And what was also just so egregious for me is that all this went down the day before the 20-year anniversary of 9/11, which, for those who don't remember, was a day that 2 skyscrapers fell down because they were on fire and people died. So to like do that in the shadow of that anniversary.
Although I don't know if an inspection would have stopped what happened on 9/11.
If there's just been 3 more sprinklers.
Can you imagine preparing for the 20-year anniversary of 9/11 and at the same time trying to open a skyscraper that they knew was not safe for fire safety reasons? Like, that is so gross to me because it had to be on their minds. They were preparing for the celebration at the same time. So it was like, I just find that putting people's lives in danger. And the whole reason they did this is that the Turkish president was visiting. And so they wanted to open the building with the Turkish president there. So it was stupid political reasons, but they put lives in danger by opening an unsafe building. And this was all done because this guy was taking bribes. So he's as corrupt as it gets. I don't really give a shit what the deal is that he made with the Trump administration. This guy has proven himself to be a danger to the public with his judgment. So I think he deserves to be. I'm surprised that he hasn't been removed already. It's unforgivable.
You're talking about an indictment like a conviction. This is the indictment, right?
Well, here's the thing. It's the...
He's not gone through a trial. He's not had
but that's
a defense.
The problem.
He's not had a jury convict him of this.
He's not going to, apparently, because that's the deal that was made with Trump, is that his indictment, all of it's just being thrown out by... whoever throws these things out. I don't know their names.
This is reported. This is, an assumed deal. It's not like this was announced on Truth Social.
Yeah. But if the governor has the chance to step in and get this danger to the public out of office, I'm all for it.
Does it make a difference that she didn't say that he was going to be thrown out when he was initially indicted on this, that it's only when...
It was in September.
Well, I mean, I do believe in due process, but if we're no longer doing that in this country... I mean, what are you supposed to do? Let him keep his power? I don't think that's the right thing for the public. So I don't see what choice
it is. It is an election year.
I don't care. This guy's dangerous. Okay. This guy's dangerous. He's taking money and bribes from foreign officials. Like, he's a foreign agent, and he hasn't been proven yet, but there was enough evidence in there for me to go, oh my God, this guy has put American safety in danger because of these corrupt relationships. I think... No, he should go.
I remain a fan of due process. And I think saying the government has charged a guy with a bunch of bad shit is not sufficient for me to throw him out. Being charged with something is not the same thing as being convicted with something. He's not been convicted of something. He's not had a trial.
No, I understand that. But what about the fact that the trial is no longer happening for corrupt reasons?
Why do they need to do it in federal court anyway? They could do it through the New York City Department of Investigation. They could do it through the city comptroller. There's a city conflicts of interest board. The state could do it. Alvin Bragg, the DA for Manhattan, has prosecuted high profile people based on violating federal law, right? But like that, this is now a year or two ago, so I'm having to remember this. But as I recall, New York State, you can prosecute people based on federal law. So there's nothing to stop anybody in New York or New York City from pursuing this. And they should, because if somebody is indeed taking bribes from a foreign power, not reporting them, then they shouldn't serve. I don't disagree with you on any of that. But if the situation is that the city and state are declining to prosecute him on their own matters, and that the federal government steps in, but the governor, as Justin points out, did not think that this was a big enough deal when the indictment came out in September or October or November or December, not until he actually starts working with the Trump department. I don't think this has anything to do with the charges you bring up. Otherwise, they would have happened back in September. Instead, they happen now when he's collaborating with the Trump administration. I think that's ultimately what this is. It's a political decision. There's never been a New York City mayor who's been removed or impeached in all of its history. To me, this is not going to be as bad as a lot of the other stuff. If convicted, sure, absolutely. But I would like to go through that. Otherwise, it strikes me as a political decision rather than a criminal justice decision.
You might be right. I just, at this point, I just don't trust our due process system is working. And I think this man is dangerous. So it's like, we're just in this new era.
Just on the New York thing real quick. Like I lived there previously. Again, I want to put out here, I'm not saying we should do bribes. I'm not saying anything like that. However, I will point this out. Like right now, somewhere between 40
I'll
and 80%.
Venmo you $100 to say that we should do bribes.
That's right. Okay, fine. We should do bribes. When you go to New York City, 40 to 80%, depending on whose estimates you're looking at, could not be built today by the strictures and regulations of New York. Like a significant amount, at least 40% of New York City could not be built today based on all of the regulations that are in place. So it would not surprise me if there was something that was an over-regulation. It was something that was in there as part of a union agreement where we got to have to come in there. I don't know what it is, but I'd like to see what it was in court. I'd like to see both sides of it. I'd like to see what the explanation is, because it would not surprise me if there was something that was needless red tape that falls under the very broad purview of public safety that is not actually upholding public safety.
Well, having read the indictment, you can read the email between the fire inspector saying this is not safe. It wasn't just that they were missing one or two things. It was like in their own self-reporting, there were so many problems with the fire safety system. They said like, there's just no way we can approve this. So it was an unsafe building. That much seemed pretty clear to me. And I'm with you, like there should be due process. But we're at the point now that the case is being thrown out because the guy made a deal with a corrupt president. Like, what do you do when there is no due process? Do you just allow...
prosecute him at a state level or a municipal level, both of which could result with him being taken out.
But in the meantime, he's still in power. He's still allowed to be making these types of decisions and making these kinds of deals with people. Like, at what point do you have to say like public safety matters? Like, are we just going to leave these people empowered while people in the Trump administration are able to just, because this is what Trump does. Like, this is his playbook. You just slow everything down. So you just keep your power. It's like he was able to push his own trials for 4 years and become president of the United States and, you know, allow the political process to work or whatever. But like, at what point do we just say our due process system is broken and we have this guy who did something that I think is so unforgivable? He put lives at risk. I don't know. I'm with you, Justin or Andrew. Like, I would love to say, like, let's follow the system as designed, but like our system is being actively broken right now. So how do we deal with this?
You know, part of the rationale for the Trump Justice Department to drop these charges is that they say they were only brought, especially on a federal level, because Eric Adams spoke up against Joe Biden's immigration system. And so he was being punished by that Justice Department.
Based on the emails that I saw and all of the evidence that they presented in that 57-page indictment, this isn't just a like, oh, it's a witch hunt. Like, these are very serious accusations that put the public in danger. So at what point? There's just so much, like the Trump administration says, you know, like these people are liars.
Politicians?
I don't know, man. And like my faith in our entire system is crumbling right now. And I don't really know how to handle that, because I think we had due process that was making its way. And so it's like letting Adams keep his power while that was moving forward. It's like, okay, that's fine. But now that's all ground to a halt. Now we have to wait for other people to start the whole process all over again. Meanwhile, this guy is still empowered. Like, we're just leaving corrupt people in power. Like the fact that Bob Menendez that whole time was still on the Senate committee, and like we're allowing corrupt people to maintain their power for entirely too long. And at least with Bob Menendez, I don't think he put anyone in danger, but Eric Adams did. And so that's why it's just such a red line for me. It's like his decision making could have life or death consequences.
I think that is a good argument to be made. I stand by all the stuff I previously said, but I think that is a strong and coherent argument when you're going from a public safety perspective of what power does the current mayor have and can he execute that? So the follow-up would be, is the interim that's going to come in going to be better? And I don't know, but I would be concerned at that point if we're not thinking in terms of due process, we're not thinking in terms of what is the proper way to remove somebody from a situation like this, just in terms of the safety. The next step to me would be to go, well, who's going to fill in? Who's going to be the one to step in? Are they going to be better? And I don't know the answer to that, but I'd want to know who it is before going down that route.
I can actually tell you that if you fill for 2
I probably
seconds.
won't know who they are. I've not paid a whole lot of attention to New York politics the last few years.
Either. I mean, I guess that's fair, but can it really be like, who's going to be worse than the guy who has already told the fire
Right.
inspector,
I guess
you'll
the deal is,
lose your job if you don't do
think
this?
that Eric Adams is aberrant, I guess is the difference. I don't think that the people that we're talking about, Hochul, who's making a political decision, Trump, who's making a political decision, and Eric Adams, who's making a self-interested political decision, are aberrations from the political process. I think that that's probably more standard than we'd like to know. And so I don't know that all of the other city council people are going to just automatically be better.
But the idea that corruption is so standard in this country that we should just let it all go, I'm not okay with that either.
No, I'm not okay with corruption. I just think that the political class is self-interested. And so I'm always like, this is one of the reasons I don't want everything to be solved with politics, is I think that this is endemic to it. So I want the realm to be shrunk.
A public advocate, Jermaine Williams, would become mayor should Hochul remove Eric Adams. Jen, let me ask you this. You have been very critical of the Democratic Party for not being particularly sticklers in their quest to preserve democracy, and that they often will, for their own political expedience, ignore the will of even their own voters. This is a city that is dominated by the Democratic Party and has been for a while, very much so. The Democratic primary that's going to happen in June in that city will determine who the next mayor is. Is it anti-democratic to remove the duly elected mayor?
I think that there has to be a mechanism to get dangerous people out of power. And if this is the one that New York has chosen, so be it. So I'm less worried about that, especially where there's an election coming up. If New York had the power to make the election happen sooner, that would be great. But even then, like, there is going to be an election to pick the next person this year. I'm less worried about that than the fact that this person put lives in danger the way he did.
By the way, the leading candidate for New York City mayor, Andrew Cuomo, who got ran out of the governor's mansion for sexual misconduct and also possibly killing elderly people by putting them back in nursing homes with COVID.
I don't know, man. I don't know. I think we're just at a place where our country is so fucking lawless that, like, I don't know how to handle it. And that's kind of like where I feel where we're at here. The fact that we can have we can have someone taking bribes from foreign officials in a way that puts American lives in danger, and we're even having this conversation. Like, I don't know what we do with this country. I think we're just so far gone.
You were more swayed by the indictment than I was in terms of the bribery element of it. Like the Menendez indictment, you read it and you're like, okay, this guy is like a cartoon version of, he might as well be like, I'm bribe man, give me bribes. The Adams stuff largely was centered around the accommodations he had, the lengths of his stays, and the airfare, the first class airfare that he was given by Turkey, which, while I will agree certainly to an average person is excessive, I don't know how much it is excessive compared to other. I mean, New York City mayor is the most premier mayorship in America. It is looked at probably on par, if not greater than most governorships in terms of there being foreign interest in courting the favor of that person. Like, I just don't know how different it would be compared to somebody else's accommodations that would be, paid for by a foreign entity.
That's not the part that bothered me, honestly. Like, I kind of skimmed over all the details of how they bribe. Cause, like, if you look at the totals, I mean, a lot of it was, you're going to pay $50 for this flight, but it's actually going to be worth like $10,000. And this happened over and over again. And it was the same with hotels. And like, so it's like a penny saved is a penny earned kind of bribing. Although there was campaign contributions that were funneled from a foreign entity through, they would give cash. That was more that came from, like, a foreigner would be like,
let me also say this. Eric Adams is corrupt. Everybody knew Eric Adams was corrupt before he became mayor. He was embroiled in controversies when he was the police chief of New York City. So it's like, I am not here to say Eric Adams is a choir boy. I do think that for him to be the first guy to get removed in the city that produced Tammany Hall is a little interesting. It is weird that he is the place that you draw the line in terms of public corruption. But the indictment, I was like, I was more sympathetic to the idea of like, would this have been brought a Democratic mayor? Would a Democratic mayor be looked at by the Department of Justice if he was not an outspoken critic of the Biden administration's immigration policies?
I would maybe buy
that
if there was only that side of the ledger. If it was only he's taking this money and this is how he's doing the campaign contributions, because I feel like campaign contributions are legal bribes anyway. So the details of how they get to where they go, I'm not all that interested. He crossed the line when Turkey made the ask and said the ask is to open up an unsafe building. Once he did that, this crossed the line into something completely different. So most of the indictment was about where the money came from and all the totals and da-da-da-da-da. But that was so far beyond the pale for me that, because it's like, it's one thing if you get bribed, but you don't actually go forward. It's like you take the money, but you don't actually do the favor that's asked of you. He did the favor in a way that could have killed people. It's too far for me.
Let me just say this. My first job out of college was in the cottage industry of waiting in lines at the Department of Buildings, because it is such a Byzantine, and indeed I will say, graft-filled system where people will hold up your permits for months, if not years, for reasons that go beyond whether or not it is safe or not. I do know, without knowing the specifics of that situation, I do know that system, including fire inspection, which is probably that and environmental are like the two things that can delay a building for as long as possible, are often opaque, often Byzantine. And, you know, it's enough that you just need dumb schlubs like me to wait in line to file and refile and refile and refile these things as soon as you possibly can.
This wasn't a matter of paperwork. It was a certification saying that this building was safe. And the discussion amongst the people that would have to certify it from the fire department was, this building is not safe.
Yeah.
They do not have the systems in place that they need to have in place. This isn't a matter of, they need to speed up the paperwork. It was an unsafe situation and they opened it anyway. Because of this relationship.
I would argue that garnering the certificate is paperwork, but but
it's signifying something that matters, which is that if there's a fire in this building, the sprinklers are going to go off and stop the fire. They didn't have that. The physical thing that matters is, do these fire systems, do they work? Are they in place to where they need to be? The answer was no. That's the part that matters, not the certification. The certification, it's signifying something that's important. It's signifying something that could save or kill people.
What were the actual deficits in the building then? What were the things that made it unsafe?
Oh, give me a second. Talk amongst yourselves. I can find it.
I tend to think that this is a big mistake for the New York City Democratic Party, or the New York State Democratic Party, and you know, Democrats nationally. I don't think that this is a smart idea. I believe that this is, especially considering it's an election year, it's just going to reek of punishing him because he went on Fox with Tom Homan, and you are going to sow more distrust with your party. And especially when you're replacing it with the last guy that you just threw overboard because he was not on your side enough. Like, this is.
I don't know that there'd be any repercussion, though. I mean, like New York City, as you point out, is solidly Democratic. It's not like they're going to elect a Republican anytime soon. And New York State, I don't know as much about New York State politics, but I'd be very surprised if the governor were to go Democratic, or. Do you know what the state legislature's composition is?
I believe it's a Democratic supermajority. You know, so I don't think there's any blowback. Look, I will say this: the mayorship has been a Republican in recent memory. Michael Bloomberg was the mayor, but before he became a Democratic super donor, he was a Republican mayor. Obviously, Rudy Giuliani was a Republican mayor. They have elected Republican mayors in the past. They've elected Republican governors. George Pataki was a Republican governor. So I don't think that they are forever entrenched in the Democrats are in New York State per se, in terms of those politics. Nationally, I think they will probably have 2 Democratic senators and vote Democratic for president, probably for the rest of our lifetime. Jen.
Okay, so here it says on September 9th, 2021, after a contractor working for the Turkish consulate sent the fire department a letter describing the status of the skyscraper's fire alarm system, an FDNY employee with responsibility for inspecting the system sent the fire prevention chief the following email, quote, "Chief, after reviewing the letter, I do not see any way we would be willing to accept it. They have some major issues like central station and fan shutdowns, which would be an automatic violation order. Aside from that, he gave us a list with over 60 defects, and some of them list 5 to 10 problems in each one. FAIU would not go beyond 20 defects without issuing a violation order. In my opinion, this document does not take any liability that we would be comfortable with. I believe it actually tells us this building is not safe to occupy. Feel free to reach out to discuss this further," unquote. Not safe to occupy.
I'd like to hear both sides. The reason I say that is, like, theoretically, let's say that there's a regular thing that occurs where there's some group that goes, well, actually, these aren't these are broad-based regulations. They can be waived under certain situations. Go here, we'll waive them, and then they do a bunch of political wheeling and dealing. It'd still be bullshit, but it's entirely possible that he put people's lives at stake, in which case he shouldn't hold office. I don't disagree with you on that. The part that I have a problem with here is he's been indicted. He hasn't been convicted. He's not had an opportunity in court to say what was going on. He's not been able to present his side of it. He hasn't been, there might be elements here of.
And why is that? Why is that?
Yeah, because it got knocked out by the Trump administration, and now it's getting brought probably for political reasons.
It probably would not have been heard by the time
reasons.
that the primary happens in June anyway. If it had still stayed there, they would have still gone to the primaries and he would have been damaged by it politically.
But if we're going to yell due process and then due process is stopped for corrupt reasons and this person remains in power, he's a danger to the public, what the fuck do we do? Where do we put our priorities here?
I don't think that the way to solve lawless society is to go, due process isn't here anymore, so let's just not bother with it. Like the way
so we
to do
leave people who put the public in danger on purpose in power.
I think that you want to default on law and due process over public safety when they come into conflict. I don't want government officials in general. There's a very broad statement here. I don't want Trump suspending laws out of public safety interests, right? I don't want anybody going, let's not bother doing this. Now, in this case, nobody's breaking the law by trying to remove him. The governor has that legal ability. But what I would like to have happen is New York City or New York State prosecute him there. That would be the proper way to do this. And if there is something that's so overwhelming for public safety, then she should have removed him in September. That's the, like, there's been a several months gap where apparently he wasn't a threat to any of these people as far as they were concerned. Nobody walked from his staff. Nobody left. The governor didn't say she was going to recall him. For that length of time, this was not a public safety issue for them. Now it is. And so that's the bit where I go, well, that tells me it's a political decision.
Has been stopped midway. So it would have to either restart, which we don't know if it's going to, but the due process that was working forward has been stopped for political reasons.
That is not why his deputies walked. His deputies walked because he is cooperating with Tom Homan on deportation.
Although to be fair, Justin, it's not that he's cooperating. They're asserting that he did a quid quo pro, right? They're saying that the Trump department or the Trump administration has said, we're not going to prosecute you if you help us, and that is a kind of bribe in and of itself. They're not just saying we don't like that he works with him, but rather that he is doing something corrupt.
We don't know the contours of the conversation that happened at Gracie Mansion that led to the four of them leaving. So, I think there's a lot of stuff that's kind of getting conflated with this, and I don't blame anybody for doing it because we don't know what the situation is. And let me also say this. Eric Adams is a shady, corrupt dude. Eric Adams probably should not be mayor of New York City because he didn't live in New York City when he was running for mayor. He was living with his girlfriend in New Jersey and taking Instagram pictures of that apartment that he was actually living in. And then when he said that he was going to take people into the place that is his legal residence in Brooklyn, it was very clearly his son's apartment, down to the fact that he didn't even clear his son's stuff out of there. So it's like everything to say about Eric Adams, I totally believe any and everything. It's a I don't know. I think that is a crazy city.
Maybe I'm driven towards the Jen side now of I do believe in due process and everything, but nothing illegal is happening here. We should point this out. The charter of the city of New York and the New York State Constitution both empower the governor to remove a mayor. It's never happened before, but there's nothing illegal going on. Maybe I should institute a heat and best practices of when in doubt, fire the fucker. Maybe that would be the way to go.
When it comes to due process, it's not like I'm saying that he should be removed as the mayor and then fined and imprisoned. Like, you don't have a right to be the mayor of New York. You have a right to, be.
I mean, he was elected that.
He was elected, but you don't have a right to remain in power if you have been credibly accused of doing things that put the public in danger.
That's the line. The line is credible accusation.
But no, the definition of due process, when I'm talking about due process, I'm concerned about locking people up and fining them. Like, that is what the consequences of being convicted are. But you don't have a right to remain the mayor. That's just not a right that you have. And so there is a legal process for removing people in situations like this, like Andrew said. And I think that this meets the standard of fire the fucker. I think that he deserves it.
Yeah, I think we're going to disagree.
Jen, I think I've come over to your position. I still think Hochul's doing it politically. I still think she's being corrupt. I think everybody here is corrupt. Let me rephrase. Everybody here is corrupt. But fire the fucker. Sure. I think you've brought me over to that position. Like, you
3 months before the primary, 3 months before, and 6 or 7 months before the election.
Yes.
No, probably not. Because it's not like he's personally signing all of these on his desk, right? The idea is that he exercised soft power in order to expedite these things that resulted in the. Yeah, if you could make it to it, Jen, if you or somebody else can make a compelling case to me that he will have the opportunity to actively cause public safety issues over the next 6 months, sure. Otherwise, I'd probably just default on the election and have the voters get rid of him.
He's the mayor of New York City. So what official is he going to pressure next on behalf of Turkey? There's all kinds of opportunities for that. He's been acting as a foreign agent as the mayor of a major U.S. city. No, out. You're done. I was saying the same exact thing about Bob Menendez too. He didn't have the right to remain a senator. His ass should have been impeached and thrown out of the Senate too. He's a foreign agent. He's a foreign agent. No, get him out. Get him out.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know what? I think I'm with Jen on this one. I think you're not going to have a special election, so it's not going to cost the taxpayers additional. You're going to have what's his name?
You might have to have a special election.
I don't think so.
Need them?
I think you just have an interim mayor. I know that the governor is in a place where the governor can suspend the New York City mayor for a period of 30 days if they feel like it. So you've got a 30-day reprieve. How about this? As the moderate, I'm going to try to strike a balance between Justin and Jen. Jen, I, the governor, am going to remove him from power for 30 days, during which time we're going to appoint a very special board to review any public safety issues that he could do. And then pending that board, we'll reinstate him and then have an election.
Oh, I can't.
I think it's rich. It's just rich that all this is happening now. I think it is. It is a little rich. I would not do it. I think it will be damaging to the Democrats of New York. I think.
Yeah, but you view everything through a political lens. I'm viewing it as if I had an office in that tower and there was a fire, I could die. I just think there's more important things than politics right now.
How
I don't
many
give a shit
towers
what
you
it
can
does
say
to the
that
Democrats.
in New York City?
I don't care. That's the thing. I don't care what it does to the Democratic Party. I don't care how it looks. I care that this guy is a foreign agent who put Americans in danger. Get him out.
I think is aggressive. I don't think that based on that indictment that I would say that the things that Bob Menendez did are the same as what Eric Adams did. And again, I believe he is a corrupt person. I'm just saying with that indictment, for what he got paid for what he asked for, I don't think that registers what Menendez did.
This is what we know of. The fact that we even have these questions.
We can't convict him on things we don't know of.
But we know enough to know that he was taking bribes from a foreign government official. That's enough.
Justin,
that's enough.
Justin, you are my personal Obi-Wan Kenobi of cynicism when it comes to government. Yeah. So noting this, do you think that all of the people at that level in New York politics are corrupt and the public is just picking between corrupt people, or do you think he is aberrant? Like,
Since old
are they
New
all-
York was once New Amsterdam. Yes. Yes.
Okay, so
100.
So in this case, removing this corrupt guy, you do not believe would actually
New York
eliminate
City
the
is run
corruption.
on party politics and has been run on largely ethnic-based party politics for as long as it has been a thing. Since as long as it has been the glittering jewel of the United States of America, you do not get anywhere unless you have paid your dues with various different constituencies and various different machines that elevate you to a certain level for which you get to be in charge of everything. And especially on the Democratic side, that is largely tied to machines for which you will owe favors. You will owe favors to make sure that you give back to X, Y, and Z. So yes, we can dissect and say exactly which side of it did the favors go, and does it cross over a line of corruption? Sure. Like if we want to go by that, I would hazard a guess to say that for what was in that indictment, you could probably get the vast majority of New York City mayors over my lifetime. Because like you pointed out, Andrew, there are so many rules, there are so many regulations, and there's so much money that you kind of are always going to be put in a position where somebody wants something that they can't get based on a rule that somebody can hold up, either because somebody else is paying them to hold it up because they don't want it. And because you have so many warring factions in New York, those kind of conflicts often happen. And whoever has the ears of Gracie Mansion is going to wind up being the tiebreaker on stuff like that. So, Jen, I understand. I get where you're coming from. I just think it is a bad way to go about it when now, with this close to an election in that city, that you are going to remove him because you are now going to set the line for removal at something that will be far more easily clicked upon going forward.
I don't know. I think this is kind of extraordinary, but I do have one question, like just politically. Is Eric Adams a Democrat or Republican?
Democrat.
Oh,
He's a
yeah,
Democrat, although Eric Adams came in after New York City had implemented ranked choice voting. And so while, of course, a Democrat won, I think you could make the argument that he was more conservative of the Democratic options. I think he would be a lot more liberal than an Oklahoma Democrat. But by New York City standards, if conservatives were choosing between the available Democrats, he probably would have been the favorite.
Okay.
Yeah.
But like
Within a
Kathy
spectrum
Hochul, she would be removing one of her own. It's a Democrat removing a Democrat.
For sure. Yes.
Get him out.
It would be strictly
Because even
inter-Democratic
politically, it is you taking care of the rot in your own house. That is a way this could be spun. Now, will the Democrats be wise enough to spin it that way? I don't know. They're pretty bad at this. But like, it's not like a Democrat is removing a Republican. It's Democrat on Democrat. So it's like, get him out.
I think that they are looking at it like that. They're looking at him as occupied because he is cooperating with Trump.
You know
Whatever.
what? Okay,
I don't
I'm
care.
coming
Get
over to
him out.
Jen's side on this one. Sorry, Justin. I do think they're all corrupt, but I'm not going to try to preserve due rights. As Jen points out, the due rights are there for criminal purposes, not for political purposes. If the worst case scenario is here that it bites the Democratic Party in the ass, I have no problem with that as collateral damage. I think I'm okay with this.
There we go. Patreon.com/We're Not Wrong. This week we'll be talking about whether or not there's gold in Fort Knox. A little conspiracy theory here for you. Elon wants to get up into Fort Knox. I want to know where the gold's at. Show me the gold. That's what Elon's saying. Patreon.com/We're Not Wrong. Sign up and get your bonus episode.
I didn't know that Elon had that accent.
Well, he's a noted. Have you ever seen that video?
What video?
The leprechaun, the Alabama leprechaun.
No.
Oh, this is classic internet stuff. Classic internet stuff.
Is it
In fact,
Elon?
No. You guys look up the Alabama leprechaun. Will play the Alabama leprechaun video right now.
Well, just in time for St. Patrick's Day, crowds are coming by the dozens to get an up-close view at what some say is a piece of Irish folklore.
Some people in the Crichton area of Mobile say a leprechaun is taking up residence in their neighborhood. A leprechaun. NBC 15's Brian Johnson has more.
Curiosity leads to large crowds in Mobile's Crichton community, many of you bringing binoculars, camcorders, even camera phones to take pictures.
To me, it look like a leprechaun to me. All I gotta do is look up in the tree. Who else seen the leprechaun say yeah?
Eyewitnesses say the leprechaun only comes out at night. If you shine a light in its direction, it suddenly disappears. This amateur sketch resembles what many of you say the leprechaun looks like. Others find it hard to believe and have come up with their own theories and explanations for the image.
My theory is it's casting a shadow from the other limb.
Could be a crackhead that got hold to the wrong stuff. And it told him to get up in a tree and play a leprechaun.
We're going to get down to the bottom of this. Yeah, it's still on there, guy. Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid, man.
This guy helping to direct traffic says he's prepared for his encounter with the leprechaun. He's suited up from head to toe.
This wars off spells right here. This is a special leprechaun flute, which has been passed down from thousands of years ago from my great-great-grandfather who was Irish. I just came to help out.
Others just came to get lucky in hopes a pot of gold may be buried under this tree.
I'm gonna run a backhoe and uproot that tree. I want to know where the gold at. I want the gold. Give me the gold. I want the gold.
This is Brian Johnson, NBC 15 News.
The world is so much better for that. Thank you, Justin. Thank you. As bad as Jen feels about all the shit Jen feels about it, I feel great now due to that video. Thank you, Justin.
I'm so confused by what I just watched.
He might be a crackhead.
He might
got
be
hold of the wrong stuff.
I love the guy in fatigues that goes, "This is an ancient 1,000-year-old flute, and it's clearly PVC pipe that he spray painted, and not even very well."
See, you want to know? It always feels good when I can educate the Philistines on the classics. For
You
everybody
do have a
listening.
breadth of knowledge, which is impressive, Justin Rutherford.
Well, let's talk about culture, huh? The Saturday Night Live 50th anniversary special aired on Sunday, attracting nearly 15 million viewers across NBC and Peacock, making it NBC's most watched primetime entertainment broadcast in 5 years. Viewership is more than triple the average of a regular SNL episode. However, it falls short of the 23.1 million viewers who tuned in for the 40th anniversary special in 2015. Special was a 3.5-hour event featuring classic sketches, musical performances, and appearances by former cast members and hosts, including Steve Martin. There was a Black Jeopardy sketch with Eddie Murphy and Tracy Morgan, and musical performances by Paul Simon, Miley Cyrus, and Paul McCartney. Mr. Andrew Heaton, why does SNL, of all things, still have lasting cultural impact in this fabric of America?
I think as an institution, it is the gold standard of sketch comedy. There's lots of better sketch comedy, by the way. Like I love I Think You Should Leave, which I think
Former
is
SNL writer and cast member, Tim Robinson.
But in terms of just long-standing institutions, I don't know that there really are that many other long-standing institutions that are producing sketch comedy. Like
No.
SCTV is no more, Mad TV is no more. So it's kind of the only touchstone we have for that very specific thing. I also think that like the death of SNL is kind of overstated. And this is weird because I don't watch Saturday Night Live anymore, but I don't watch TV anymore. I just stream stuff. But I find that everybody that wants to shit on Saturday Night Live has the same thing, which is it was great when I was in high school with this particular cast that I came in on. For me, that's Phil Hartman through Will Ferrell. And then it quit being funny after that. And I think that a lot of the time it ends up being this artifact of when was I in high school? That's when it was good. Because then you go back and you actually watch it and you're like, oh, like it always had one good sketch per night and a bunch of shitty sketches that didn't really materialize for a variety of reasons, but we retrospectively do that. So I think that's why that's there. The other reason is because it becomes like it is the place to go. Like if you're a celebrity and you want to go, be in front of America, you go to Saturday Night Live. So I think that's why it still maintains resonance.
Did you watch the 50th special?
I did not know about it until this morning when you sent me this.
Jen?
I actually think it stays relevant because of its political satire, because I will only check into it for like the beginning of it.
The cold open.
Yeah, the cold open, because a lot of times that's where they have the political stuff. I think it's a way to see how current events are being handled. It made a huge difference. Like, I remember when Tina Fey was Sarah Palin, like that actually affected the election, because her
to this day, people still think Sarah Palin said, "I could see Russia from my house."
Yeah. And that was
just Tina Fey.
But Tina Fey did such a good job of kind of putting her finger on what was bothering us about Sarah Palin. And I think SNL is so talented in doing that, making us laugh. And especially in these moments when things feel insane, like SNL, with this exception of maybe South Park, I can't think of anywhere else that I'll go to be like, okay, someone make me laugh about this shit. SNL is able to do that, and they've been able to do that for decades. And so I think that's what keeps them relevant, because if it was just comedy and they weren't touching on current events, I don't think that they would still be around. I think that the fact that it's making us laugh at what we're currently going through, I think that's what makes it so iconic.
I think that you are dead on. While Heaton and I probably care about sketch comedy more than the average person, because we have been practitioners.
Like at a religious level. Yeah.
Yeah. Like nobody else gives a shit. Like if SNL were any other form of niche art or comedy, it would have the same issues, which is the reason why it's successful. Is it is, number one, a clearinghouse for what culture is. And weirdly, as we have gotten more and more and more spread out, SNL is kind of the litmus test for like, who's famous? Who is this important? Does this translate? Like, because everybody is in their own little world, and we all have our own little feuds and celebrities and things that we care about and we don't care about. There's no mainstream anymore. And yet weirdly, this one counterculture barnacle remains, and the fact that it has continued to thrive because it creates viral videos. It creates, like, Weekend Update is a quick punch out, a 30-second punch out on a joke. The sketches are 2 to 3 minute little pieces of fully formed art that has adapted well to the modern internet era.
I agree with you. The one thing I'll push back is not countercultural. Saturday Night Live is it's the opposite of countercultural.
Now it is monocultural. It began as countercultural.
Gotcha. Yes. Yeah. Forgive me. Yes, I think that's right. This is something that I do tend to push back on some of my friends on, where they love the idea that like we're the little guy fighting the man, and it's like Saturday Night Live, and I'm like, that Saturday Night Live is not the little guy. Like no. I'd say like South Park's countercultural. I think South Park like is like punk rock. We don't give a fuck. We're going to offend you. Whereas Saturday Night Live is the funny version of what the establishment thinks, whatever that it lives in the Overton window. Sorry, I'm using the camera thing again. Zoomed in unnecessarily.
Yeah, like I remember, was it Kate McKinnon who played Hillary? And after she lost, she like sang some song, and it was like, oh, okay.
Hallelujah. She sang,
which was I would say
so
a nadir
dramatic
point in Saturday Night Live, where it's like, gang, we really just do want you to shovel jokes into a hole. We don't want you. I don't want them to be the soul of the country. I just want them to do fucking jokes. And also, it's one of my big problems with political satire during Republican years, because it turns into clapter and shit.
I really liked what they did this time when Trump won, where they had the cast come out as the cast and just all say, "We just wanted you to know we voted for you, President Trump." Like all of us liberal sketch comedians, we voted for you. Many of us multiple times, like as a way to be like, oh, we're scared we're going to get put into a prison camp. But at least that was like, it had a perspective. It had a point of view. It was trying to make a joke. It wasn't like, here we are, this resistance beacon. Please follow us to freedom. We're the Underground Railroad for sanity and democracy. It was more about jokes.
And then they had Jack playing Trump. No,
James Austin Johnson, who's hilarious and he did the best Trump back during the first Trump administration, where he would just do these. He very much gets rally Trump, where he's like kind of like rambly. They did another sketch a few weeks ago where, which I thought was really funny. They had Lin-Manuel Miranda begin a Hamilton song, where he's like America will never have a king, and then it freeze frames and Trump walks in, he's like, oh, maybe not. But he, you know, he has that rambly sense of like, you know, doing the weave and couching things, but not couching things. I don't know. And they also make jokes as opposed to Alec Baldwin, which was just a shitty Trump impression where you were repeating things that happened over the last week, which was not funny in any way.
Good.
But
Hey,
yeah,
hold on, Justin. What do you think about my theory that everybody's just locked in on whatever they experienced in high school?
100%. I mean, and this is something that you know.
That said, Phil Hartman is a fucking saint, and he is a god in the world of comedy. It's a shame. The woman that shot him should burn in hell forever.
His wife?
Yes.
Yeah. Crazy.
She goes to
bitch.
comedy hell, which is not funny.
No. Yeah, I mean, I think
comedy hell is also NPR heaven. Continue, Justin.
there's no doubt that SNL has produced some of the most enduring funny people in American history, right? I guess that's the other thing, is that it is a star factory. When everybody comes back and is on SNL for the 50th reunion, it is an insane embarrassment of riches to be like, oh, they only put Will Ferrell in 2 sketches because he's got to share space with Eddie Murphy and he's got to share space with all these people that were beloved cast members. I mean, hell, like you mentioned, Heaton, I think you should leave. Tim Robinson is of SNL, was on SNL, wrote on SNL, along with the other guy that does I Think You Should Leave. He didn't even make it onto the 50th anniversary special, and he has probably produced the vanguard of current sketch comedy. And I don't think that when you see everybody that was on there that you'd be like, oh, well, it needed Tim Robinson. I would say it probably should, but I care about sketch comedy, whereas America doesn't give a fuck about it.
Yeah.
But yeah, no. To your point, yes, you care about SNL the most when you care about most things the most, which is in your early teens. And you become obsessed with it because it has this rich history. You can go back and watch old sketches. You can dissect what was funny, what wasn't funny, why it worked. You fall in love with certain cast members. And when you're first realizing what it means to be funny at all, let alone when you start to become obsessed with writing sketch comedy, like you start to figure out like, oh, okay, well, these people matter.
Did they have Jack? Because Jack Handy is a living god. Was Jack Handy there?
I actually still haven't watched the whole 3.5 hour special.
Yeah, okay. I doubt he was. I just don't feel like he'd do it. He's comfortably ensconced in Santa Fe. I called him one time. He emailed me back. That's the extent of intercommunication I've had with Jack Handy.
I will say
someday.
SNL did a concert the night before on like Saturday night or maybe Friday night at Radio City Music Hall that was like insane. They had such like the Fugees reunited, Nirvana with Post Malone played Smells Like Teen Spirit. They had like this crazy, they did a big montage of Lonely Island songs. It was pretty insane. I think in terms of praise, the concert probably got more praise than the 3.5 hour special, but also it's like no comedy should last 3.5 hours. Like that's inappropriate.
No, you get worn out. You don't know. Like I love comedy. 3.5 hours is pretty long for that. I snuck into the Harvard Lampoon one time.
Did you?
Yeah. Well, one of my it was my first trip to Boston, and one of my friends was like, "Do you want to go to the Harvard Lampoon?" And I was like, "I would love to go to the Harvard Lampoon." What she didn't tell me is that she did it by telling them that I was a Scottish castle expert. And so I had to, which I could fake the accent. So I got into the castle and they were nice. Everybody was cool to me. The bit that I was severely disappointed in was I actually picked up and read the Harvard Lampoon, and there was at least one person who was a flaming plagiarist in it. And the fact that nobody had spotted them and killed them.
What were they copying?
Straight up stealing Jack Handy. Straight up stealing Deep Thoughts. I mean, like, not even microwaving it bad. And I like, which made me go, is the Harvard Lampoon just like rich people club? And then we will teach how to be funny later. Like it made me question, it made me very populist about comedy.
Why do you think The Simpsons has sucked for the last 20 years? Because that's the dumping ground for all those fucking losers.
Mm-hmm.
One political thing on SNL and then we can move on. There was a thing that went viral on conservative Twitter with Tom Hanks playing a Trump supporter who was afraid to shake Kenan Thompson's hand, right?
see this,
and it's in a sketch called Black Jeopardy. This is very stupid. If you are a conservative that's listening to this show and you thought that that was an insult, you desperately need to watch the whole sketch and watch the previous sketch that they did with that. Black Jeopardy is a recurring sketch on SNL where black people know a thing. And the joke is there's one white guy who does not know, or girl that does not know the thing. And they are exposed for being a performative ally. After several of those of that joke, Tom Hanks comes on a few years ago and does a MAGA supporter. But the joke is that he is actually far more connected with the black community than any of the other effete white liberals are.
Black Jeopardy with the MAGA hat was fucking brilliant. You mean from like back in 2016? That was fucking
so
brilliant.
They did it again on the 50th anniversary. But the joke that went viral because people were like, oh, SNL is disgusting, is that Kenan agrees with him so much, he comes over to shake his hand and Tom Hanks is initially like, oh, and then realizes that he should shake his hand. But it's a botched joke. Kenan fucked up the joke because he should have walked faster from the podium. So the idea was that Kenan was walking fast toward him. And then he was like, oh, and then realized he just wanted to shake his hand. Instead, Kenan walked slow. And so it looked like he was just like, didn't want to shake a black person's hand, but then immediately shakes the black person's hand, which doesn't make sense comedically. So that was stupid. Boo on conservative Twitter for thinking that that was anything racist or demagoguery toward their side, because that is like by far, and this is a low bar to clear for SNL, the most trenchant political analysis and satire that they have done on that show to the MAGA movement for the last however long it has been a thing. Like there is one bright spot, and that was casting the most beloved actor in America as a MAGA supporter who connects inherently with black people and wound up playing out at the polls in 2024.
Yeah, and that clip did go super viral because I've seen it multiple times with conservatives being like, it's
stupid.
It went really far. That and Ryan Reynolds and Blake Lively showing up.
that was a funny joke where Tina Fey and Amy Poehler say like, oh, Ryan Reynolds, how are you doing? And he goes, great. What have you heard? Which I thought was good.
Yeah.
Good.
Those are the only two things I've seen. So
I'll sit down and watch all of it. It is, I don't know. I think I'm with Heaton. At a certain point, it's like, if you care about sketch comedy, you kind of have to care about SNL on some level. Like it's like you could be a lapsed Catholic, but you know, every once in a while you should go to mass on Christmas.
I probably won't watch it, but it'll all be very Heaton specific insecurities of like me watching it going, God damn, if I just worked a little harder, if I just been a little funnier, maybe.
Oh God.
Maybe
well, that's the other
writers.
thing you have to realize is that anybody who gets involved in any kind of level of sketch comedy, you are just constantly measuring yourself against anybody that's on SNL.
Like I can't like, I got invited to submit for John Oliver right before I left New York. It was closed call and everything, and like submitted, didn't get it. I know the guy that got it. He's funny and funnier than me, so I don't feel too bad about it. But can't watch him anymore because I'm like, damn it. So yeah, the Saturday Night Live, I don't know how to bring myself.
Should have been me. Although now they're all like children.
By all accounts,
like
I would not have got along with John Oliver very long, but it would have been a nice feather in my cap.
You don't.
This isn't feathery enough for you. You're not peacocking here on We're Not Wrong.
This is where I belong.
I think so.
We are no Tahiti.
No, I would. You know what? It would be the same. I would just be doing this and Saturday Night Live as opposed to this and the political orphanage.
That is true. Like a lot of the SNL cast members have like very successful podcasts now. Bowen Yang has very successful podcast.
Well, I mean, I do think it would lift our boat to have one of us be a celebrity, and I do think Andrew has the best shot because he's trying. So
yeah.
So good luck, Andrew.
Wardrobe and low-level sex scandals. There's all sorts of things that could propel me to celebrityhood.
You and Dame Judi Dench. It's just not going as viral as it should.
The denture. That's what I call her. The denture.
We're not wrong pod at gmail.com. You can write in things that aren't about the city of New York. We're not wrong pod at gmail.com. Very Manhattan centric episode of the program today. Born Back Sleacelessly writes, Just want to let you know that Jay Gatsby was into ladies with colds. Quote, she had caught a cold and it made her voice huskier and more charming than ever. So Jen, whatever you do, don't put on a green light at the end of your dock. And for the love of God, do not swap vehicles after an afternoon of drinking.
Well, I'm glad someone likes this voice.
Hey, Lonely Boy writes, Andrew, why don't you live in a co-living space? That's exactly what you describe when saying that you would like to live in an old folks home.
Maybe I should. Can you bring your dog?
I would assume so. It's a co-living space.
I don't know. Maybe, you know what? Maybe I could rent an office and live in co-living space. That could be fun.
Old Balls, right? Wanted to give some great news. My in-laws at the Villages have been angling to get my husband and I to move there for years. In our late 30s, we didn't understand how we would be welcome, but it turns out that the bylaws of the Villages say that as long as 85% of the residents are over 55, the remaining 25% can be under 55. So you can head on down now and enjoy all the pickleball, golf, and swinging grandmas you want.
Let's go. That sounds amazing. Do you know, is the upside down pineapple an old people thing or an all swingers thing?
It's an all swingers thing.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that because I did learn about that in an old age community.
Because all of my sex jokes are jokes. What is this thing about an upside down pineapple? And I've never heard this before.
If you're a swinger, you have an upside down pineapple. It's like they'll have it. So I went to Leisure World, which is where I found this out. I was with a bunch of firefighters and they were explaining it to me. And like you could see that some of the houses had upside down pineapples, like either like hanging from the roof or whatever. And like that meant that they were swingers.
They're into it.
Yeah.
Approach them. Approach them with an offer. They are openly taking pitches.
Yeah. And it's such a thing that the fire truck that I was riding in had an upside down pineapple in it because they were just like trolling the Leisure World people. But yeah, it's like a whole thing. We saw quite a few pineapples. So
Tulsi knows what she did, writes, here's my metaphor on the Tulsi Gabbard thing. Though I'll admit I barely followed the story. Tulsi Gabbard is like that one friend who stays on your side in a breakup and all the other friends back your ex. And now that they've claimed this island of loyalty, you turn around and ask, hey, is it cool if I go work for your ex's new abusive husband? No. The answer is no.
The email continues.
I'm sure Bernie appreciated Tulsi's support in 2016, but it doesn't condone supporting somebody like Donald Trump, who, given who Bernie Sanders is and what he believes.
I think there's some validity to this take, actually, because, you know, Tulsi did help Bernie or like tried to help Bernie, but that's when they were all trying to be Democrats. But like this might just be a bridge too far for him. I don't know.
I think there's validity to this take, but it doesn't make me like Bernie anymore. I think that this is accurate insofar as it is acknowledged that Bernie is thinking of the appointment in terms of moral purity and not thinking the appointment in terms of practical governance. I would think that if somebody like Trump, who I, Bernie Sanders, am horribly opposed to as elected president, that I would like the opportunity to have a trusted advisor whose politics I agree with in the White House advising decisions. That's not how he's thinking. He's thinking of she has become morally impure by associating herself with this person, so I'm going to vote no on her. And I think, I don't know, this vote and a couple other things make me, I think he is concerned with moral purity a lot of the time. And,
you know what? I'll give you that.
I think it's party purity.
There's no way we were going to.
I don't think it's moral purity. I think it's party purity. He's just a straight down the line Democrat. He's a machine Democrat.
He's an independent.
Really? Is he? I mean, he Ron
but
Paul
then, like,
didn't
that's the thing.
endorse
Like,
Romney.
I don't buy the idea that because he's so loyal to the Democratic Party. That
he's an I know.
He's
an I know in my opinion, independent in name only.
He said, I agree. No, I think that but he's the independent label signifying moral purity. It's not signifying actual independence. He endorses every every Democratic presidential candidate. He ran as a Democrat. Like he voted party line on this one. Like he's saying I'm a very special Democrat when he says he's an independent. It doesn't mean he actually functions independently.
Yeah. And then he kept running as a Democrat even after they fucked him in 2016.
Right. Yeah.
So, but yeah, you're right. I'm going to take back what I said. Tulsi, there was no way that we were going to get anyone better for DNI.
Well, and also it's like what element of Bernie Sanders' foreign policy or intelligence gathering perspective does she clash with? Like, show me on
she
on
wouldn't
the paper.
call Edward Snowden a traitor.
So
that really pissed them off.
Yeah, but for him, for Bernie, Like Bernie doesn't care about that. Bernie's not policing that. He's not foaming at the tiny mouth like Bennett did. Like he doesn't care. So it's like what element of the foreign policy element or the intelligence gathering element does Bernie care about? He doesn't. He's just, he didn't want to be the sore thumb and have a bad headline written about him that he was the one person on the Democratic caucus that voted for her. And it's like, okay, whatever. Mitch McConnell.
I don't know what do we know if he gave a reason for it or did he just quietly vote on this and say nothing? It's okay if we don't know, but.
Yeah, I don't know offhand, but he didn't. He just voted against her. I don't know, but low moral character. I would just say that there is that. I mean, it takes a lot to jackknife your whole fucking political career for somebody, and that was that case with Tulsi. Anyway, I've run this one into the ground.
Well, she's come back from the dead. Apparently, she's now our director of national intelligence. So
I know, she's
doing all right.
But that's that. I think that's credit to her as somebody who wanted. But again, she had to kind of do. She had to kind of do something that doesn't ever happen, which is like cross the line and be rewarded for it. Shorty got low, right? Slower, more character. Bill Weld or Bernie Sanders. I still put Bill Weld ahead of Bernie Sanders because Bernie Sanders was just revealing himself to be a callow person. Bill Weld actively fucked over dozens, if not hundreds of volunteers, if not thousands of volunteers and donors that sacrificed because they believed in him and the libertarian ticket. Contacting Congress writes, I know Andrew has answered constituents' phone calls, but with the political climate the way it is, does contacting your representative do anything if they are deep MAGA? So I assume this is from the perspective of somebody that is critical of the administration. If your representative is deep red, does it matter if you contact them?
I think my data is perhaps outdated at this point. I hope it is, given that it's been over a decade since I worked in Congress. I'd like to think that they have better mechanisms to sort. So when I was there, we were still getting faxes, and we would get fax bombed every day because there is a huge surfeit of very frustrated retired people who have decided that their job is contacting every single member of Congress every single day. We would get phone calls from people that would call every member of Congress every single day to tell us that we were fired. And so there was such a surfeit that we would keep we would keep track of certain phone calls on certain bills. But otherwise, it was kind of a deluge. I hope that they're better on that now. There's some sort of mechanism that they have. I don't know. I will say that if you've got a deep MAGA congressman, or for that matter, any district where you are served by a member that has an overwhelming majority, they're a lot more worried about shit that happens in the primaries than they are with actual constituents. But then again, my knowledge is out of date. But I know that there's some Hill staffers that listen to the program, so I would love for them to weigh in on that.
I mean, I've asked everyone that I've ever met who's worked in Congress, including Hill staffers and Jack Abramoff, the lobbyist, and every single person has told me that these calls matter. And so while I don't quite understand the mechanism of it, I've been told that they do, so I keep making the calls, although John Cornyn's voicemails have been completely full for a while now, so I think they've just given up. But yeah, I mean, when in doubt, make the call. It takes you 3 minutes. Can't hurt.
On the death clock, Know Thyself writes, who needs an AI to predict one's death when you're already gifted with self-awareness? I'm going to die choking on food because I eat like a fucking goblin from Trolls 2. I'll attempt to eat a biscuit while taking lunch at my desk, fall and die. I made biscuits last night. I'm looking at them now. It'll probably happen tomorrow.
Dude, this is the reason why I don't wear white. If I'm wearing white, I feel like I'm taking such a risk because I drop at least one thing from every meal all over my chest. I am also a goblin, and just is what it is. We gotta accept ourselves for who we are.
The poster counting down the rest of your life exists, right? So I wanted to share that not only does this exist, it's the calendar of your life infographic poster from Kyrgyzstan, which is German for in a nutshell. But they have a fantastic video replete with Heaton-esque accent having narrator about the whole 4,000 weeks that you would be alive, although they say that we have 5,200 weeks, and you can bring your tissues. My therapist said it'd be good for me to get one of these so I could overcome my fear of death. but I'm too chicken to do it. However, if Heaton or one of you of the You're Not Wrongians will do it, I'll buy 2 of them and ship one so we can be morbid and get over our fear of death together. Let me know. Heaton, will you accept a calendar that maps out the rest of your life?
I don't know that I want a death buddy. Like, I appreciate this. I just don't know if this is how I want to create our particular social relationship. And on the I go back and forth on the death calendar thing.
Face your death, you pussy.
Well, see, part of me is like, yeah, like I need to man up and just like stare down the Grim Reaper and be like, do it. But then there's a part of me too is like, Wallace seems a lot happier than me. And I don't think Wallace knows he's gonna die. He just like drifts from moment to moment. And I kind of think that the not thinking about it might even be a better way because you can't do anything about it.
Well, especially now that you're currently wasting away. It's gotta be scary.
Yeah,
I'm like a hot, well-endowed skeleton. It's just a matter of time before I shrivel up.
Nothing but bone.
The death clock said I was going to die of AIDS. Finally, why are you hiding? Writes Heaton talks about smaller and widespread government, but I don't think I've ever heard him on this show say what he would shrink, what he would get rid of. What does he think that we don't need?
Great question. So let's see here. I think if I were to end the war on drugs and cancel about half the military bases we have abroad.
You want to know what? I'm going to stop. Heaton, no. You know what? I'm not going to indulge this question. If you really want to know what Heaton will cut, literally listen to Heaton's entire body of work. He has been working in this space for a very long time. There are many people who like to spin their wheels and talk about how government should be cut and shrunk and never name anything. Heaton is not one of them. He is like one of the 5 people that will deliberately go point by point. Listen to his episode on the national debt, and he will explain to you in exquisite and poetic detail what needs to be reformed and how it would need to be reformed and at what point things would cross over a line.
I appreciate that. Yeah. I can think of 9 federal agencies I would abolish tomorrow. I can think of 3 other federal agencies that I wouldn't abolish, but I'd defund by 90% just so everybody wouldn't lose their shit. And but I guess the main thing is this, though, is like when you're looking at the size of government, you can look at the departments, which is somewhat valid, but I would look rather at the spending and the regulations. And I think I do talk quite a lot about cutting spending and regulations. And so, yeah, there are a bunch of things. I've got them. I don't know. Maybe I'll do a bonus episode on my show or something like that where I extol them. But yeah, anyway, thank you.
Yeah, because this question could go on for a whole other hour.
Frankly, it could. I have a lot to say, and it was going to take about 8 minutes. So
again, it's like, look, there's a lot of, especially these days, there's a lot of people who want to have magic math on exactly where the federal deficit is and how we can fix it and whether or not we can fix it through cutting various things. Heaton is not one of them. He is a very, very clear-eyed, earnest voice in terms of believing that there should be a reduction in spending for fear of dramatic and life-altering, civilization-altering consequences should we not get our act together, and is very specific about where things should be cut from this perspective. Now, what the problem I think with these conversations wind up getting is that they are always on some level theoretical. You can say, hey, this should be cut, this should be shaved, this should, and therefore these will be the consequences, but we don't know. And that's part of what's scary about this moment that is happening, where we do have probably the most radical view of reducing federal workforce and budgets that we have had in Washington, D.C. in my lifetime, is because now we are going from the theoretical, the think PC, think tank podcast argument, of which Heaton is, I believe, the most honest broker that I've ever seen on, to the, well, let's see. Let's see what happens when this kind of stuff happens. So
there's also a big mismatch between like superfluous thing and actual bang for buck. Like I don't think we need a national endowment for the arts. I think the arts can do fine without the federal government, right? I would abolish the national endowment for the arts. I'm not saving us a lot of money when I do that. Yeah. Like you're in terms of worrying about the deficit, which I am worried about, you gotta tackle entitlements. That's it. There's no way around it. Like military too, but like there's just you can cut. I can cut 9 different things that I can think of off the top of my head that aren't even going to make a dent.
We're Not Wrong is a production of Dog and Pony Show Audio. Our editor is Will Saddleberg. On PX3 this week. Jen, let me ask you this. Government shutdowns, the bane of your existence. How long have they been a thing?
I mean, we really didn't deal with this before the 1990s.
They were only a thing. They were essentially invented, I found out this week on Wednesday's Political Orphanage with wunderkind Gabe Fleischer, who fresh out of college has probably forgotten more about political minutia than most voters have will ever know.
So real quick, it wasn't on the Political Orphanage. That's my show.
Sorry.
You're thinking of PX3.
I was wondering, I was like, well.
No, I've colonized Heaton's show. On PX3 this week on Wednesday, he said that, and I double checked this, the shutdown happened under Carter, where they reinterpreted a law to say that instead of an inability to reach a funding agreement just essentially being an automatic continuing resolution, that non-vital government or that government agencies would shut down. And that has become a political football in our modern world. It was initially done as a way for us to get to the table faster. I don't know if that's really happened per se, but theoretically, Gabe posits that it would only take a stroke of a pen from Pam Bondi, the current attorney general, to say shutdowns aren't a thing anymore. There's now just an automatic continuing resolution.
I mean, that would make a lot of sense if we decided to do that. By the way, we are barreling towards another government shutdown.
And that's why we brought it up, because one of the things that I find fascinating is that this might be, for the first time in my lifetime, a situation where Democrats want to take credit for shutting the government down because they are in a crisis as to do something, quote unquote. And this would be
a really weird
doing
play, though, if the concern you have is that the government's being dismantled, and so you're like, so we're going to shut the whole thing down. Like,
but
that is
being talked about.
Democratic tactics. That does sound like
something
right? They would attempt to do to save the.
Yeah, they would be that dumb. But yeah, I don't.
Once everybody sees our shitty sclerotic government not operating, they'll beg to come back to the table.
I mean, that's being AOC's floated it. There's been a few prominent Democrats that have said, like, no, we're gonna shut this fucker down.
Never doubt the Democrats' ability to do the wrong thing.
This is my, like, because these things are kind of tricky, right? Because you're trying to fine tune these things to make sure that they go in a particular way, and we never see coming. How can lizard people, politicians, abuse this? So like example, I like the idea of a line item veto. That would be saying that Congress passes a bill and the president, we give the president a constitutional ability to go, we're not paying for this, knock it out, right? But in states where they've tried that, the legislature goes, fuck yeah, so we can just say everything we'd ever want and put it on the fucking governor to be the dad. Now he's the asshole.
They're writing bills like Tim Robinson ordering fast food, and I think you should leave. Just like,
it's like, we
55 entitlements, 55 military spending, 55.
Yeah, we think that the state of California should pay for everybody's pets, and like the governor's, we can't do that. Oh, the governor, right? So there are things like what I would do to avoid the shutdown and the deficit is just have a thing where you got to balance the budget within a 5-year period, or everybody has to leave Congress and have brand new elections. I think you'd see a lot of different incentive structures happen.
Heaton, what's on this episode of PX3?
This week on my show, Politics. It turned into a comfortable. It ended up being a good chat. I was deeply uncomfortable with it to begin with. I brought on my friend John Rausch, who's a really great guy, and he wrote a book, basically going the reason that America is de-churching, becoming less religious, is because Christianity has saddled up to the Republican Party. And that has caused all. And I was like, I don't want to talk about religion like in this. But we ended up having a really good chat about it. So we have a chat about like, what is the role of the church with partisan politics, and is it backfiring? It ended up being a really good chat. You know who believed in that? Barry Goldwater. Barry Goldwater fell out with Ronald Reagan because of the coupling of the evangelicals to the. Barry Goldwater was a vociferous opponent of the religious right, and towards the end of his life was also a proponent of gay rights. Mm-hmm. He was both a Republican and Democratic Party to it. He was which is part of the tragedy of him being painted as a anti-civil rights guy. It was that like he in his personal life was a vociferous civil rights advocate when there was like no benefit
to it. And also it's trumped up.
First
the
thing
idea
he would
that
do every
voted
time he led
against
an
the civil
organization, the
rights act.
first thing he'd do is he would desegregate the organization. That's the first thing he would do. He was part of the ACLU. He was also part of like the NAACP. He had constitutional problems with the 1963 Civil Rights Act. And I could totally see me doing something like that. Where I'm like,
by the way,
not the
1957 one, which he voted for. It was the 1963 one.
And it was 2 articles within it. Yeah. But
And then LBJ irradiated him for the rest of time. Jen.
So freeloaders, I got nothing for you on Congressional Dish. I'm still working on the episode because I've been really sick. But last week in Congress is actually going really well on Patreon. So what I'm doing is I'm looking at what happened last week by pulling out the Daily Digest. So I'm telling you every bill that was passed in the House and Senate. I'm telling you about the hearings. And like last week was really where Congress started ramping up. So the last episode was like 45 minutes. But it's fascinating to me just like how many different topics I get to blabber on because I'm doing this. Like this week, it was the IMF and Chinese currency and Israel. And there were just so many different topics. And so, yeah, I'm really enjoying Last Week in Congress. It's video for people that like the video on Patreon. So, yeah, I would suggest supporting my work and then you get access to that every week. And I think it's something that I am going to be able to maintain. I'm really enjoying doing it. So I feel more comfortable telling people about it now. But yeah, Congress is ramping up. Still not doing much, but there's lots to talk about.
One last thing out the door. We were sent gifts that I forgot to talk about at the top of the show. So we'll talk about it at the end when everybody listens. Jared sent us books. He sent Jen Rafit Al-Arir's If I Must Die, Poetry and Prose.
Okay.
Sent Justin the Dad's Playbook, Wisdom of Fathers. And then sent Heaton Good to Great and Social Sectors by Jim Collins. Huh. So
okay.
So there we
Thank
go.
you.
Why business thinking is not the answer.
Oh, did you give me fucking homework? All right, I'll look at it.
Yours is by far the thinnest book.
Okay, well then I'll read it.
Yeah. So there's that. He writes, thanks for all you do. You are the voices of sanity in my own ways, and I appreciate them in an increasingly chaotic world. Hope you find time to read in 2025. So that'll be here when you come back, Heaton, along with your hat. We got to remember to get you your hat and your book.
I got multiple reasons to go to Reason Weekend and make a tax deductible trip to visit my friends and get my shit.
There we go. But that wraps it up for us today. Till next time, friends, a reminder for Jen Briney and Andrew Heaton. I'm Justin Robert Young. We're not wrong. Eric Adams is.
Amen.